Hello and welcome to another episode of dougformative. On today's episode, I'm going to show you how to create a YouTube video thumbnail using Inkscape. Now, typically, Inkscape isn't the best program to use for that specific purpose, but some people like to just be consistent and use the same program for all of their graphic design things. So it doesn't hurt to know how to do that. I already have the image that I'm going to be working with saved to my desktop, and in order to get it into Inkscape, I'm going to click the top of the menu here, and just once you drag it away from the top, it'll automatically shrink it down to that size. Here's the picture that I'm going to be working with. All you have to do is click and drag it into your Inkscape window, and you'll see this menu pop up. Just hit OK. None of those settings are important. Let's go ahead and maximize the window again. Now, as you can see, it imported it upside down. Now, there's a couple different ways that you can flip it right side up. The image is already selected, so with the image selected, one thing that you could do is hit the letter V, which will do a vertical flip. Maybe you don't want to do it that way. Maybe you want to keep the orientation the same, because by doing that vertical flip, you're reversing the image. So if you hold Control and hit Z, it will undo that flip, or you could just hit V over and over and it'll put it back the way that you wanted. So if it's upside down like this, the other way that you could flip it around is just click on the image one time, and you'll see that you get the rotator handles on the corner. Now you could hold Control, click, and rotate it until it's right side up. And that way you have the image in the orientation that you need it to be, and it's not a mirror image of itself. Now, in order to crop out the area of the photo that you want to work with, we're going to use the Bezier pen, and we're going to need to zoom in so we can get as close as possible to the area that we're going to be working with. Initially, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do an outline, just an outline of myself in this picture, and then we'll go back and do the inner area. And let's go ahead and get started by, you can either click on the Bezier pen or type B on your keyboard in order to get the Bezier pen. And it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. What you can do is just find a starting point, click, and then you're just gonna find anchor points throughout the image. So if you like find some kind of a corner, or maybe where a curve stops, you know, you can just click on those areas, because what you're going to end up doing is going back and adjusting all of these lines to match the curve of the object that you're tracing. So there's another corner there. You could do something like that, just going around clicking on each corner. And if you are using a mouse on a desktop, if you click down on the roll wheel and drag, you can move the picture around, and it's just an easy way to keep whatever you're working on directly in front of you. So here we go, there's another corner point. That's good. That's good. All right. And I'm not going to sit here and do the whole thing. If you just hit enter whenever you're done, then you'll see that it creates that line. And then what you're going to do afterwards is go to your Edit Paths by Nodes tool, and you're going to go in, and once you get that hand on the line that you created, you can click and you can just drag the line to create the curve that you need to match the outline of the object that you're trying to cut out. So you're going to do this for every line that you created. And if you need, if for some reason this curve is not matching, just, you know, like what it's doing right here, you can create another node along the line by double clicking on it. And with that line, it lets you get a little bit more accurate with the curve that you need to create. And you want to get as close to the object and almost inside of the object, because if if you don't get inside the object, then what happens is you get that little bleed over where you can see the background. And once you've cropped that area of the image out, you kind of get this weird off-colored outline, and it just doesn't look natural. So you want to get as close to the edge of the object as possible, and a little bit inside. And because you're just using it for a YouTube thumbnail, nobody's going to be seeing it on a larger scale anyway, so it's not the end of the world if it's not exactly perfect. But you know, some people are really particular about how they want things to look, and I'm no different. I'm pretty OCD when it comes to that sort of thing, so I completely get that. So you can be as picky as you want and take as much time as you need to create your image, and you know, just continue going around bending these lines as much as you need to. Now in this scenario, see how there's an angle right there? Obviously you're not going to have an angle on your finger like that. In order to smooth that out with that line selected, if you hold control and click on this node right here, it's going to make it more of a smooth curve. And now you can make whatever adjustments you need to make to get that curve to match the outline. That looks a lot better than it did. And then you can just drag these handles in or out, you know, depending on how much you need that curve to be. And all right, I'm not going to sit here and have you watch me adjust all these lines. You get the basic idea of how to do that. Now, once you have created that whole outline, and you're going to trace the entire outer edge of that, and you know, just so you can see exactly what it is that I'm talking about, I'm going to grab the Bezier pen again by hitting the letter B, and if you click on a point where your line ended before, you can click on that, and then you can continue on wherever you left off, and it will still treat it like one solid object. And the reason why I want to show you this part is so you can see what it looks like once you've completed the entire thing. So that was my last corner, and then I'm going to reconnect it to this point right here that I started from. If you click on that, now you have this solid object. And like I said, I'm not going to sit here and adjust all these lines, so you don't have to sit there and watch me do that. Once you have your object, you can go into your color palette down here and click into that, and now you can see you've created an object. And once you've sat there and adjusted all the lines to where you need them to be, then you can cut this area of the photo out and get rid of the background. Now I've already got that started in another window, so let's go ahead and transition over there so you can see what to do next. Alright, now one thing that you can't do in Inkscape when you're trying to separate an area of a photo is, once you've clipped this portion out, you won't be able to go back in and delete that area. At least I haven't figured out a way to do that. So what we need to be able to do is remove this from this first object that we just created, so it doesn't try to add this to what we're removing from the photo. And I know that sounds a little bit complicated, but you'll understand here shortly. And the reason why we want to have the opacity dropped down is so we can actually trace this line just like we did the outside of the image. So we're going to grab our Bezier pen again and, you know, start the process over one more time, clicking on all these points and then adjusting the lines. I'm going to speed this part up so you don't have to sit here and watch me adjust all these lines again. as you can see, we're done adjusting those lines. And let's go ahead and click down here and make that a different color. Now what we need to do is take this object that we created and remove this object from the object that we created previously. And how we're going to do that, we need to grab our selector tool, and with this orange object selected, we're going to hold shift, click on the other object, go to path, and click difference. And now you can see that that area is cut out from the original blue object. Now we need to do the same thing inside the chopsticks here. So let's grab our Bezier pen one more time, find a starting point, do the exact same thing. This will go a little bit quicker, so I don't think I need to speed up this part. And just make sure when you're completing this object that that square, that node that you're clicking it onto, is red, because that means that you're completing that path that you just drew out. Go back to our edit paths by nodes tool, and I'm not going to be super picky with this part because it's not going to be that big of a deal. And just to let you know, I will be using this image for a YouTube video that I just recorded yesterday. So I'm not just doing this for the sake of the tutorial. It will be an image that I am going to be working with. Alright, so that is done. That was really simple. Let's just make that orange like we did on the other one. Now with that selected, grab your selector tool by clicking this here or hitting the S key on the keyboard. Click on the other blue image. Now we're going to go to path, difference. Alright, so we have highlighted in blue the area that we're going to be using for our YouTube channel thumbnail. Alright, now before we proceed with the next step, we need to figure out exactly how much of this image we're going to be working with. And in order to do that, we need to create what is going to be our background, or at least get the dimensions set first. And normally how I do my thumbnails is I have my photo on the left hand side, and then I'll put some kind of text on the right. So I need enough space on my thumbnail to type in that text. In order to get this image on the left hand side, all you have to do is hit H. Once this is selected, we have to select both actually. Once both of those are selected, just hit H on the keyboard and it will flip that image. There's nothing on here that indicates that this is a mirror image of anything, so it doesn't matter if something is flipped backwards or not. Alright, so just click off of that, and what we want to do is just create a rectangle that's going to represent the background of our thumbnailed image. So just click and drag, and it doesn't matter what size you're using because you're going to type in the width and the height. So with that chosen, you're going to go to your selector tool, and as you can see, you get these other menu options up here. And what you're going to do is go over here to the width, type in 1980, then you can just hit tab and then type in 1020 and hit enter. Just make sure that you have pixels selected from the drop down menu, because if it's millimeters, then that's going to be a lot bigger than you're going to need. It's just a lot easier to work with pixels anyway. Now what we can do is click and drag this down. It's fine if you have it snap to that corner there, and hold control, click and drag this arrow up, and that looks like a good height for what we're going to be using. And now we can hold control and click and drag it over so we get the area over here that we need to type in the title of the video. And I think that looks pretty good right there. Now the reason we have to do this is if we don't remove this area of the object before we remove the photo, this portion of the photo from the background, there's no other way that we're gonna get this to the size that we need it to be. So that's why we have to remove this part of the object first. Now how we remove that from the object is we need to create another rectangle. We can just start from this corner here, let it snap onto that corner, and just try to get it as close as possible to that other object. And now we're going to grab our selector tool again, and in order to select this object and the object that's underneath it, you're going to hold shift, now hold alt and click. And what that does is it will also select the image that is underneath this image. And we're going to do path difference. And now what you'll notice, let me click this out of the way so you can see, now that portion of the object is gone. So once we remove this part of the photo from the background, it will not include this area that we don't need to work with. I'm going to hold control and hit Z to put that back where it was. Actually, no, let me move it out of the way. How we're going to remove this from the background is by clicking on the blue object, holding shift, clicking on the background. We're going to go to object, clip, set. And there we have just this portion of the photo that we are going to be working with. Now we can grab our fake background and get that lined up to where we need it to be. That looks about good. And obviously I'm not going to leave it orange. Most of the backgrounds that I put on are some kind of gradient or black or white, you know, just so you have that contrast there. And we're going to want the background to be behind this image. So go ahead and select it. And these options right here will allow you to move objects above or below other objects on the design that you're doing. This one right here, it will allow you to lower it all the way to the bottom. This one will just lower it one step. This one will raise it one step, and then this one will raise it all the way to the top. And those are very useful if you're working with multiple objects. Now I'm just going to click this one, lower selection to the bottom, and that way the background is behind it and we can see exactly what it is that we're working with. I'm going to change the color of this background to black, and I'll just leave the opacity down for now because I'm not sure if I'm going to do a black or white background in this specific thumbnail. But now we want to create our text. So go over here and select your text tool. Click on the area that you're going to want your text to be, and then start typing whatever your text is going to be. And this is how to use chopsticks. And I want chopsticks to be its own separate entity. Now if you notice over here on the right hand side, whatever you're typing will show up in this window, and you can adjust the fonts and the size and the style of your text in this window, or you could do it up here with these menu options. I don't want to use this font, so how I can change that is let me select both of these. You grab your selector tool, and that's already selected. Let me hold shift, select the other one. Now we want to click on our text tool again and find a different font. That one might be okay. And now let's go back to our selector tool, and then let's make these a little bit larger so we can see what we're working with. Yeah, and I do like that font. I think that one's pretty cool. But I want to adjust where the text is lying, so just click off to the side to deselect everything. I want to click on chopsticks, move it up here, and you know, this is one good reason to use Inkscape for this, is because you can work with each individual object very easily. Alright, so I want to make the word chopsticks take up more space, like that. And if you want, you can create a drop shadow. If you're going to do a drop shadow, it's usually better if you're not using a black text, because the drop shadow has a tendency to blend in with it. You know, it's better if you're using a different colored text. But if you wanted to use a drop shadow, I can show you how to do that. We can hold shift so both of these texts are selected, and then we can change the font color to white. And with both of those still selected, hold control, hit D to duplicate it. We're going to make that duplicate black, and then go down here to our fill and stroke menu, and see how above opacity we have a blur. And it doesn't take much to have that blur effect. You can usually just use like 1 or 2, and that's plenty of a blur. I'm going to drop it back down to 1. And what we're going to do is we're going to just click and drag it down and to the right just a little bit. And using these menu options I was talking about earlier, we want to lower that selection 1 step. And yeah, just click that as many times as you need to so it ends up being below your original text. And if you zoom in on it, you can see we have that drop shadow now behind the text. I'm almost thinking that I want to use like a Japanese flag in the background. I think that would be kind of cool. Alright, so I'm going to import an image of a Japanese flag. I've already done a search for it, so I've got that pulled up over here. And one thing that you can do, which is pretty cool, is you find an image that you like, you can right click on it and then copy image, and I've already done that. Go back to the project that you're working on, and if you hit or if you hold control and click V on the keyboard, it will paste it into your project without you having to click and drag it in. So let's zoom out, and what we want to do is we want to make the flag the background, so we're gonna have to resize it. And I think it would probably be cool if we just flipped this image by hitting the H key. And now we're going to drop the opacity down so we can see where it is lined up on my thumbnail. And I want this image that looks like a sun to be right towards the middle of the text. We're gonna hold control, click, and drag this out just until it meets the outer edge. Alright, I'm gonna adjust it a little bit more. Alright, and that looks pretty good right there. So now we need to just cut out this portion of this photo, and how we're gonna do that is we're going to move it all the way to the bottom. That's going to be the easiest way to do this. So click on this one, lower selection to the bottom, and we're going to click on the original just colored background that we created. Hold shift, click on the flag image, go to object, clip, set. And now that Japanese flag is our new background. Now we can bring the opacity up. And I think that's pretty much it. You know, when it comes to your YouTube thumbnails, you don't want to get too crazy with it, because it's just going to be, you know, viewed on a small scale, and you want it to stand out. So a lot of times simple is best. You know, another thing we could do is we could select the text and then rotate it. Let's go ahead and select everything here. Click on it one more time to get your rotation handles, and then you can click and drag it out and move these around to get it to how you want it to be. Click it again, and then you can hold control and just enlarge that text and I think that looks pretty good with the text rotated like that. Alright, so that was it. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you in my next video. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. Check out my other YouTube channel, DC Best Ever, which is where this video is going to be. And make sure you hit that bell next to the subscribe button so you get notified anytime I post a new video. Take care, guys.